Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Julie and today you are joining me on a brand new episode. We are talking about the 5 things that I regret not doing in my own home. You might be tuning into this channel because you want all of my design advice. You might be tuning into this channel because you want to hear all of the design mistakes that I have made in my almost 2-decade interior design career, and you want to steer clear of all of those mistakes yourselves. Whatever that reason may be, today's video is going to be a fun one, friends. So sit back, relax, and tune in to find the 5 things that I regret not doing in my own home. Before we jump into today's video, let's talk about regret. What is regret? Regret is simply disappointment over a missed opportunity or feeling a loss over something that has already happened. The bad thing about regrets is that you're simply wallowing in your own misery. Sometimes you're feeling disappointed, you're saddened, you're depressed, you feel desolate or lost over a decision that you have made. The great thing about regrets is that it's not permanent. Nothing is permanent. You literally just need a plan of action to reverse any regret you may be feeling. Sometimes regrets could be reversed pretty quickly. Sometimes you have to live with your decision for months at a time, years at a time. Once I started to sit down and tackle this list of the top 5 things that I regret not doing in my home, I found some common denominators which I wanted to share with you because I felt like they were very relatable. The first being budget constraints. Typically, we are all on a budget. We have other things to prioritize for our families, for ourselves, our work, our home, our environment. Everyone spends money differently, and I'm not here to tell you that you need to prioritize your home projects or else you're going to be living with regret. That's not the point at all. I realized that some of the biggest regrets that I've had in my home were typically due to budget constraints. That's number 1. The second being time constraints. I didn't make time to tackle any of these projects and I'm still regretting it to this day. But of course, time is not something you have. Time is something that you have to make and carve out. So like any other project or any other appointment, you really have to schedule and make time for your home interior projects. And lastly, what I'm sure all of you can relate to out there, I call it analysis paralysis. This is when there are so many options out there, so many things to choose from, that you become paralyzed by your own decision-making process. For me as an interior designer, I shop for a living. I have to source and curate and then procure so many elements to create a beautiful home for my clients. Can you imagine all of those little details, especially when it comes to your own home? So for me to have a fully finished space, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a whole lot of money, especially if I'm trying to tackle the entire home at one time. So before we get into my list, I just want to remind you that it's always best to consider those 3 items anytime you're tackling home projects: budget, time, and if you have the actual bandwidth to consider all of the options that are out there before you finalize your particular design. So let's get into my list. The number 1 thing that I regret not doing in my home is not installing real hardwood or engineered wood floors. I purchased my home almost 9 years ago. This was my first home for myself and my husband. It is a mid-century modern ranch-style home. We live in Southern California in Anaheim. Anaheim is full of these types of homes, and I love the style of the home. I am a mid-century girl. I do love mid-century furnishings, but if you stepped into my home, you would never say that, I was predominantly fixated on one historical era. One of the first things that you'll notice when you walked into this home was that there are so many different floors. They transitioned the floor from the entry to the kitchen to the common areas and then all the bedrooms. So like every single room had a different floor in it. The only floor that I kept was the original hardwood floors that were in the living room. Now, there was no hardwood floors anywhere else in the home. They actually had really inexpensive laminate in some areas. They had tile in some areas. They had carpet in some areas. So I ripped all of the flooring out pretty much in every single room of the home except the living room, and I replaced it with laminate flooring. Laminate flooring at that time was a budget conscious decision. This laminate flooring cost me less than $3 for material and installation and demo of the previous floors. So I just didn't have the money. I didn't have the money to install anything that was more expensive than the laminate. I could have chosen tile, which I did in some areas like the bathrooms and the kitchen, but for the general whole house flooring, I chose this rich walnut colored laminate. Now, I love the color. I absolutely am obsessed with the colors of my floor. It's like this medium grain walnut that really vibes with the old world aesthetic that I absolutely love. However, the laminate was cheap. It was cheap. It was so cheap. You can tell that it's cheap because it has warped and buckled in some areas. The threshold that came matching with this floor is just like really cheap cardboard. It's really just paper. So where the flooring thresholds are that separate the two rooms, let's say from the laminate to the bathroom, you'll see that the threshold has been chipped, it's been dented. I've replaced this so many times, but the laminate itself is just not like a super durable, heavy duty, weather resistant, water impenetrable membrane. Now, if I were to do it all over again, I want hardwood, either hardwood or like a really high-end engineered hardwood. The great thing about hardwood is that, number one, it's super durable. The newer planks have a water impenetrable membrane. So while you can't have like sitting water on it, your house can't flood, you can leave spills and stains, even in wet areas like the kitchen and the bathroom, for extended periods of time, and it won't seep into the planks, which is amazing. Not only that, engineered hardwood and hardwood actually have excellent resale value for your home. So if you're looking to replace any of the flooring in your home with some type of wood, I would always recommend to choose engineered hardwood or real hardwood for your floors. The next item on the list of the 5 things that I regret not doing in my home is not addressing the outdoor space. My home is just under 2,000 square feet and the lot is not huge. I want to say the lot is just under 7,000 square feet. So I have a smaller courtyard area in the front of my home, which you might remember from my previous videos that I invested artificial turf for. I also installed a custom gate for full privacy. So I am obsessed with my courtyard. It's not a huge space. It's about 500 square feet, and now that it's enclosed, we use it so much more. But I do have this smaller area in my backyard that's completely paved. You might remember from my previous outdoor makeover video that I did outfit this entire area to be very loungy. I don't keep it this way year-round, even though for Southern California, we enjoy year-round sun, and that is one of my biggest regrets. We rarely use this backyard space because I find that the furniture layout, although it's conducive to myself and my small family, we host so often. We always have parties here. We always have people here. Because there's a lack of seating back there, I feel like we never use that outdoor space. We don't use that backyard as much as we could. And so to me, that is a missed opportunity. That's another 500 square feet of usable real estate in my home that I'm not using. When I first moved into the home, we had this lounge set that was actually grandfathered. It was passed down to me. And the lounge set was great. It was really huge. It accommodated a lot of people, but the scale was a little off. It was too large for my teeny tiny backyard space. So I switched it out for a smaller lounge set. And even though I measured appropriately, I was trying to use the new lounge set with the old furniture, and of course here we are years later, it just didn't vibe, and I'm still not happy. So one of my next projects on the list of looming projects that I'm tackling for my home is this outdoor space. I can't wait to conceptualize it, design it with you. Of course, you know that I'm going to be sharing the entire process from start to finish, so I can get some of your suggestions on what to do as well. The third item on today's list of another huge regret is not building out a tech center. This is one of those items on the list where it's like you have to do it the minute you move into your home. If you don't do it the minute you move into your home, it is going to be so much more cumbersome. I mean, so much more labor intensive as an afterthought. Let's talk about what a dedicated tech center is. My entire home is a smart home. I mean, my husband is in IT. Of course, you know that he has decked out our entire home with like the latest technology equipment, the best TVs, the best sound, whatever, okay? That's kind of his area. My area is design and decor. So for me, I want everything hidden behind the walls. I don't like exposed cabling. I don't want to see, that wire sticking out from underneath the TV that plugs into the media console. I hate that. I want everything hidden behind walls. I want everything wireless. Now, the great thing about having a smart home is that everything is hidden. All those ugly cables are hidden out of sight. All of your pretty pieces are front and center. You get to see all of your furniture, all of your beautiful, big screen televisions, all of your sound bars, your speakers, everything's integrated into the home. But where does it all go? Clearly, it goes hidden behind the walls, and then it all gets connected to one main hub. That hub is sitting in my husband's closet, which is on the way to my closet. I see it every single day. It's this huge honking eyesore that's right in the middle of his home office. He doesn't work from home anymore, really. He just has a home office station. It's like a hub for him. So this tech area is next to his home office, but to me, it's such a huge eyesore. I wish we created a dedicated storage area for it. I do this for all of my client homes, but I failed to do it for my home because I just didn't think about it. When we moved into the house and when we're kind of connecting all of the tech gear to our home, my husband just kind of like threw everything in one area and I let him, So for me, it's one of the biggest regrets that I have in our home and something that I definitely aim to rectify. But for me, I need to carve out another dedicated area for it. So had I planned this at the beginning of our design, it would have been a whole lot easier. But now that I'm doing this as an afterthought, it just takes a little bit more maneuvering, a little bit more planning. The fourth item on today's list of one of my biggest regrets of not doing in my home is not creating a cozy home office area. I am sitting in said cozy home office studio area now, but it took me 8 years to get here. I've been designing for longer than 8 years now, but this is the first time that I've had this cozy office space in all of the years that I've lived here. My former home office, you might remember, was the girls' room. I transformed it to the girls' room now after having kids, but before that, it was this teeny tiny bedroom that I kind of just made over into an office. I plopped in a desk, I threw in some bookshelves, I threw in some etagères, and then all of a sudden it was a home office. Was it designed? No. Did I think about it? No. Did I plan to have all of those furniture pieces dedicated to that room? No. It really just became like a drop-off zone for everything that I wasn't using in my home. So while the desk was functional, I had my dual monitors, I had all of my files and my paperwork, it just wasn't inspiring. It wasn't inspirational. It didn't vibe with my personal aesthetic, and it just was all sorts of wrong, which also made it difficult for me to kind of creatively challenge myself to be inspired by not only projects for my clients, but home projects for myself. Fast forward years later, and after having Kamari and Khalees, I knew that I needed a dedicated space. What I didn't need was all of the cast-off furniture and decor that I was storing in my garage. I mean, after we cleared everything out, I now have a cozy, lovely, dedicated home office studio for me to just create. And I am just so much happier as a result. And the final item on today's list of the 5 things that I regret not doing in my home, it is not going bold. What does that even mean, Julie? Not going bold means that my home does not even have a clear design direction. It took me years and years to finally sit down and commit to fully designing and fleshing out one room. The very first room that I designed in my home when we first moved into the home was my primary bedroom. Now, the primary bedroom, as you know, doesn't even look like this anymore. But I remember the feeling of having a fully, complete complete designed bedroom from start to finish. It had the right furniture, it had the right colors, it had the right vibe, it had the right mood. I wanted a really sexy, cavernous, moody space for me to kind of just sit back, relax, unwind, fall asleep, you know, binge all of my trashy TV shows. Like, that bedroom was just like my respite, and I loved it. Ever since I painted all of the walls white after having Kamari, it's just, I wanted a blank slate, and I haven't touched on it since. And so that's been like almost 4 years now that I'm living in a blank, undesigned space. For me as an interior designer, I mean, sometimes I could wake up and that really paralyzes me. And then other days I wake up totally uninspired. And then other days I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I just need to hit the ground running and prioritize this bedroom, which is coming up next. So for me, not having that clear design direction, not having a clear focus, not making a bold statement in my primary bedroom and all the other rooms, mind you, just leaves me with a really icky, yucky feeling. That might not be true for you, but for me as an interior designer, this is my wheelhouse. You know, like, I should have no excuse whatsoever. Now, one of the areas that I did go bold in, which is my guest bathroom makeover, I absolutely love. This is probably one of my favorite rooms in the home because it was just thoughtfully designed from the ground up. Not only did I do a lot of the DIY work myself, I mean, I stenciled those floors myself, I painted over all of the shower tile, I painted the walls, I installed that wall covering on the 15-foot ceilings. I installed this brand new gallery wall that you remember I sourced and curated from all thrifted artwork. I mean, it was a labor of love. It didn't happen overnight. It literally took months and months and years to actually complete. But now that I walk into this space, I love it. I'm instantly transformed. It is an instant mood booster, and that is what good design is. Good design really has the power to transform your entire life. I'd like to leave you with my top 3 designer tips on how to tackle home design projects with intent. Number 1 is to make a plan. Where do you even begin? I always like to begin with the room that you use the most in the home. It doesn't have to be a room that you use the most, like the bathroom, but it can be the room that the family uses the most in the home, the room that you enjoy the most, the room that you use the most. Start with that room and come up with a plan. What are the missing items that you need for that room? If you have the larger furniture pieces in place, how about accent furniture? How about decor and accessories? How about a new paint color? How about added accessories like wallpaper or architectural detailing like panel molding? So you want to think about the design intent of that room, then start to flesh out a plan. Next is to put yourself on a timeline or a schedule. You've heard the saying before, if you have 2 weeks to do something, you'll take 2 weeks, but if you have 2 months, you'll take 2 months. Newsflash, people, it doesn't take a lot of time to design a room. It just takes a plan of action and to give yourself a very thoughtful timeline. I'm giving myself a timeline of the end of the year. We are now in October, so I have November, December to finish my girls' bedroom and my dining room and my primary bedroom makeover. Now, that's 3 rooms and 2 months. Can I do it? Only one way to find out. And my third tip is to budget accordingly. Before you embark on any interior design project, you really need to set aside the funds to do so. We're not saying that you need disposable income. All I'm saying is if you know the room that you want to finish, you want to complete, you want to tackle, you have to think about how much am I going to set aside to complete this project. If your budget is $1,000, you could be saving up $100 every week for 10 weeks. If your budget is $5,000, I mean, do the math. So you have to consider what is the timeline that you want to work out, what is your overall goal for the space, and then budget accordingly so that you have the funds set aside for that particular project. I have been designing interiors for over 18 years now. I got my start in hospitality. I was designing hotels and casinos, and then I moved on to nightclubs, bars, and restaurants. And now, later in my career, I am designing custom luxury residential design. All of these designs have one thing in common. They were all very thoughtfully planned and executed, and that is the power of design. Interior design can be completely transformative and totally inspiring, but it does take thought, time, effort, and money to do so. When you have all of those factors coming into play with like a really bold design, you don't regret those decisions that you thoughtfully made. Sometimes when I have all of these decisions to make, I get in my head a little bit. I'm paralyzed by all of the options that are out there. But I always remind myself of one thing, that done is better than perfect. You just need to take it step by step to get yourself to the finish line. That's it for today's video. What did you think of my list? 5 things that I regret not doing in my home as an interior designer. Do you want more tips? Do you want to know all the other things that didn't make it in today's list? Do you want this list to become a full-blown series? I mean, I have so much more to give. I feel like this will be a fun one. If you like this type of content and you want more videos just like this, please give this video a thumbs up. Comment below and let me know, what is the one thing that you regret not doing in your own home? Share this video with anyone you know who loves interior design as much as we do. And of course, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Click that little notification bell to be notified of new videos that we drop on the channel every single Thursday. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week.